Some machines arrive with so much presence that they feel less like transportation and more like a statement. They command attention with numbers that strain belief and features that draw equal parts admiration and debate. Enthusiasts track them not just for performance but for what they signal about the future of high horsepower on public roads. When regulations shift, fuel tech changes, and engineering ambitions collide with real-world limits, a vehicle built to push boundaries becomes something more than a product. It becomes a final exam for internal combustion. The appeal lies not only in raw output but in how designers and engineers navigate emissions rules, street legality, and escalating expectations at the twilight of an era. Questions emerge about how far a road car should go, who it is really built for, and what message it leaves behind. The story ahead dives into exactly that kind of machine, one with numbers that raised eyebrows even before the first customer delivery. Stick around, like and subscribe, and drop a comment with what model you want covered next. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 begins its story at a moment when the automotive landscape is shifting faster than many longtime fans expected. Its arrival forces a look back at how the modern muscle era evolved from a nostalgic revival into a horsepower escalation that few thought possible at the start of the 2000s. To understand why this model captured so much attention, it helps to revisit the roots of the revived Challenger nameplate and the market that shaped it. When performance cars began clawing back relevance after decades of emissions restrictions and fuel economy concerns, manufacturers tested the waters with retro-inspired designs and moderate power figures. Those early steps laid the groundwork for a sustained arms race built around torque, quarter-mile bragging rights, and a sense of identity that went beyond pure transportation. The Challenger platform became recognizable not only for its styling cues drawn from the late 1960s and early 1970s but also for its willingness to serve as a canvas for more extreme powertrains over time. The model found footing among drivers who craved a blend of daily usability and raw performance, with trims ranging from accessible V6 options to formidable V8 configurations that kept pushing the envelope year after year. As interest in big displacement engines resurged, so did investment in technologies that made old-school power compatible with present-day standards. Direct injection, strengthened driveline components, carefully tuned transmissions, and creative packaging of cooling systems allowed engines once reserved for racing to reach showrooms. The Challenger SRT lineup evolved in this environment, gradually building a reputation for excess that was carefully managed through limited runs, incremental power bumps, and occasional headline-grabbing announcements. Long before the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 existed, the Hellcat variant signaled that the brand was willing to deliver four-figure torque numbers tied to warranties. When upgrades to supercharger size, fuel delivery, and engine internals arrived in earlier high-output trims, they were often accompanied by weight considerations, tire technology improvements, and recalibrated electronics to keep everything manageable. With each iteration, the audience grew more accustomed to the idea that a production car could produce performance once restricted to dedicated drag machines. Yet these developments unfolded alongside regulatory changes and rising corporate commitments to electrification. That contrast heightened interest in each new release because fans sensed the window for ever greater combustion may not stay open long. The decision to craft a final edition that would eclipse previous models in both power and engineering complexity reflects years of learning and refinement. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 did not come out of nowhere. Its supercharged V8 architecture is the result of prior test beds that explored how to manage detonation under extreme boost, how to route airflow with minimal losses, and how to pair high-octane fuels with everyday drivability. In earlier generations, engineering teams experimented with adaptive timing maps, reinforced cylinder heads, and intake designs that could switch behavior depending on driver input and fuel grade. Lessons from those trials directly informed how the Demon 170 could run on E85 and extract such high output without compromising reliability. Meanwhile, the chassis structure evolved through reinforcement at connection points and strategic use of lightweight materials to offset the mass of increasingly capable engines. Transmission calibration rode a delicate line between comfort and aggression, aided by algorithms that evaluated traction conditions and throttle intent. Even seemingly minor details such as driveline angles and differential cooling gained importance as torque delivery soared. The interior, though secondary to performance discussions, still had to accommodate modern expectations of infotainment, visibility, and occupant safety without undermining the stripped-back ethos of a limited-run performance flagship. Market positioning of the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 was shaped by this broad context. It appealed not just to drag strip enthusiasts but to collectors and longtime model loyalists who tracked each power bump with near obsession. Because production numbers were finite, interest surged among those who saw the car as a final statement about the feasibility of street-legal high-output combustion. Ownership conversations increasingly revolved around allocation processes, dealer markups, and speculation about future value. Yet buyers also discussed practical aspects such as insurance requirements, maintenance intervals, and how modern traction management systems influence day-to-day use of such a potent setup. In popular automotive media, coverage highlighted not only quarter-mile times but also the subtler points of calibration that allowed such performance to coexist with public road standards. The presence of factory warranties, emissions compliance, stability controls, and street tires capable of withstanding launches under heavy load demonstrated that the project was not a simple farewell but a carefully orchestrated engineering exercise. Comparisons with earlier high-performance editions of the same nameplate frequently referenced curb weight, power-to-weight ratios, and revisions to suspension geometry. Analysts noted how the shift toward ethanol blends allowed more aggressive timing and cooler combustion temperatures, enabling output that surpassed expectations for a production engine. Enthusiasts also took interest in the specific components that distinguished the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 from its predecessors, whether that meant redesigned pistons, upgraded injectors, or stronger connecting rods. Behind the scenes, suppliers and in-house teams collaborated closely to deliver parts that met stringent testing protocols. Test sessions examined repeated launches, varying climate conditions, and prolonged high-load scenarios to ensure the package could handle what marketing promised. All of these elements shaped an environment where the final edition could thrive as more than a nostalgic send-off. Its relevance stems from the intersection of technical achievement and cultural timing. As discussions about electric replacements became more prominent, the mere existence of a car with over 1,000 horsepower on pump-compatible ethanol carried symbolic weight. Supporters praised the audacity of packaging so much capability into something available through standard retail channels. Critics questioned the practicality and wondered whether such output served a functional purpose beyond marketing spectacle. Those opposing viewpoints only fueled more conversation and cemented the car's status in automotive discourse. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 achieved something rare by turning engineering ambition into a flashpoint for broader debates about where personal vehicles are heading. Its development embodies a philosophy that sees boundaries as invitations rather than limitations. Its designers and engineers used every regulatory allowance to its fullest without stepping outside the lines. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 enters deeper technical territory when examining the mechanical architecture that enables its power figure. Understanding that layout helps clarify why this model remains distinct even among its own predecessors. The engine draws its foundation from a familiar supercharged V8 configuration but incorporates critical upgrades to fueling, air management, and internal strength. A larger supercharger displaces more air per revolution than earlier versions used on related trims, while a reworked intake tract smooths flow to reduce pressure losses during high-load operation. Fuel injectors rated for ethanol allow more aggressive ignition timing thanks to cooler combustion characteristics, and forged components inside the block withstand elevated cylinder pressures typical of high-boost environments. Engineers paid close attention to detonation control with robust knock detection and adaptive timing. This approach helped keep performance consistent regardless of minor fuel quality variations within the recommended E85 range. The lubrication system received enhancements such as improved oil passages and upgraded cooling circuit arrangements to support stability under repeated acceleration tests. Material selection for pistons, rods, and crankshaft components factored in both temperature extremes and cyclical stress patterns that come with track-style use. Those structural considerations ensure the engine can maintain output figures without compromising durability. Beyond the core engine design, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 uses a transmission tuned to handle abrupt torque delivery under launch conditions. Adaptive shift logic reads throttle position, traction feedback, and drive mode settings to select shift points that balance acceleration and traction. Reinforced housings, upgraded clutch packs, and carefully matched gear ratios help direct power without slippage that could strain internal components. Driveline geometry considers angle and alignment factors to mitigate stress on joints during sudden torque spikes. A differential fitted with specialized gearing and cooling allowances contributes to consistent power transfer even after multiple high-intensity runs. Chassis modifications are subtle but meaningful, with strategically placed reinforcements that reduce flex under heavy acceleration loads. Weight distribution considerations led to slight changes in component placement to keep mass balanced laterally and longitudinally, helping prevent instability at launch. Suspension geometry uses stiffer bushings and retuned damping to maintain contact patch integrity without causing harshness in everyday driving. Braking components also reflect the need to arrest momentum from high speeds. Rotors and calipers are sized for repeated deceleration without fade, and electronic brake force distribution aids in stability. Tire selection on the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 played a critical role, as traction becomes a limiting factor more than raw power at certain thresholds. The compound chosen needed to heat quickly for grip while retaining longevity for street legality. Engineers studied sidewall stiffness, tread pattern, and circumference to achieve the right contact interaction with various surfaces. Launch control strategies tie into tire behavior by modulating torque based on traction sensor input, aiming to reduce wheel hop or spin. Attempts to combine drag strip readiness with everyday usability required balancing burnout features, traction management settings, and driver-selectable performance modes. Cooling systems extend beyond engine oil and coolant. Transmission fluid, differential fluid, and intercooler circuits each receive targeted airflow and, where necessary, dedicated pumps. Designers integrated vents and ducts that align with high-pressure zones on the body to maximize cooling efficiency. That attention to thermodynamic stability ensures that performance remains available over multiple runs without heat-soak robbing power. Aerodynamic considerations on the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 avoid excessive downforce that could reduce top speed potential, focusing instead on drag reduction and airflow channeling around vital openings. Computational fluid dynamics assisted in refining underbody airflow to moderate lift at high speed, improving directional control. Visual elements also include subtle changes that differentiate the model and support engine breathing or brake cooling functions. Interiors reflect performance intent with gauge displays that track key metrics such as boost pressure, intake temperature, and timing advance. Owners can access customizable drive modes that adjust throttle response, shift aggressiveness, traction thresholds, and suspension damping if applicable. Though luxury appointments are not the main focus, materials remain robust enough to handle spirited driving while preserving comfort for daily use. The integration of these elements underscores the engineering philosophy behind the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170. Rather than isolate individual performance metrics, the approach interconnects each system to handle the demands of over 1,000 horsepower in street-legal form. Regulatory compliance required calibration that balanced emissions goals with performance output. Advanced engine management software ensures that the catalytic converters, particulate filters, and evaporative systems meet standards without forcing unwanted detuning at low loads. The use of ethanol blends supports lower tailpipe emissions while allowing higher compression equivalent conditions due to better knock resistance. Noise regulations also influenced exhaust system design, prompting the use of valves that moderate sound levels when the vehicle is not in high-demand conditions. The topic of legality extends beyond emissions. Safety rules from sanctioning bodies shape how factory performance claims are presented. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 advertises quarter-mile times that require protective equipment when run on official drag strips. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 carries consequences that extend beyond its production run. The model functions as both punctuation and reference point for enthusiasts and manufacturers observing the end of an era shaped by internal combustion. As regulatory pressure intensifies and electrified platforms gain traction, the presence of a production car with over 1,000 horsepower signals the maximum extent of what can be achieved within legal and practical boundaries. That context shapes how legacy is interpreted, because vehicles built at such a peak often become benchmarks cited when discussing what came before and what follows. Owners and observers recognize that this configuration reflects a culmination of decades of development rather than the start of a new combustion wave. The marketplace response to the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 influences how future performance vehicles are marketed and perceived. Manufacturers considering limited-run high-output variants must weigh the appeal of extreme performance against cost, compliance complexity, and shifting consumer expectations. Some may follow a strategy that emphasizes software-managed power delivery and hybrid support rather than traditional engine displacement, but the symbolic mark set by the Demon 170 remains difficult to surpass in a conventional format. Enthusiasts now measure new electric or hybrid performance claims against the visceral impression created by this final edition. Conversations about legacy often focus on how collectibles rise in prominence as the mainstream shifts away from similar powertrains. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 may become a time capsule representing both triumph and finality. Resale markets might see values fluctuate depending on how quickly electrified sports cars deliver comparable thrust, but the uniqueness of the power delivery and the historical significance of being a last-call edition could maintain long-term interest. Collectors who preserve low-mileage examples will likely highlight the car's place as a celebrated endpoint. Meanwhile, some owners treat the car as a mechanical statement meant to be driven rather than stored, participating in events that showcase acceleration and engineering. As discussions about sustainability become more central, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 exists as a counterpoint that invites reflection on personal freedom, responsibility, and recreation. It is rooted in a culture where mechanical engagement and sensory feedback hold emotional weight. That connection might not fade even as infrastructure for electric mobility expands, because nostalgia often coexists with innovation rather than disappearing entirely. People reference this model when telling stories about the last generation of high-output engines that defined a particular era of U.S. automotive identity. The model also shapes how other manufacturers approach farewell editions of legacy platforms. Lessons learned about allocation strategy, marketing hype, and engineering emphasis may inform how future retirement announcements are handled. When a platform nears its due date, decision-makers might study the reception of the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 to determine whether to focus on ultimate performance, design nostalgia, or technological innovation. Some may choose a hybrid farewell, but the precedent of going all in on combustion remains notable. Cultural and media impressions carry lasting influence, with coverage emphasizing the combination of mechanical audacity and compliance discipline needed to bring such a vehicle to dealerships. That coverage helps cement the narrative that this edition did not emerge in a vacuum. It responded to timing, audience appetite, and brand identity. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 becomes a reference in documentaries, retrospective articles, and enthusiast podcasts as a case study in late-stage internal combustion design. Another impact involves aftermarket industries that support long-term maintenance and preservation. Specialty shops that understand the needs of high-output engines may continue to see demand from owners dedicated to maintaining performance without jeopardizing reliability. The existence of certified technicians and parts suppliers becomes part of the support ecosystem that allows the car to remain active in enthusiast circles years after production concludes. Insurance considerations, storage solutions, and aftermarket warranties evolve in response to vehicles like this. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 also influences discussions within car clubs and communities that celebrate internal combustion achievements. Members compare it to earlier milestones and track how modern regulations affect ownership experiences. Clubs may organize meets where this model serves as a centerpiece, drawing attention for its rarity and specification sheet. At such events, attendees use the car as a springboard for conversations about the future of performance culture. Some observers may wonder whether electric successors can replicate the thrill provided by combustion-driven acceleration. While electrified platforms can surpass many acceleration benchmarks, the multi-sensory experience of a supercharged V8 has a different emotional texture. The model prompts enthusiasts to consider how authenticity is defined when new performance ceilings arise through new technologies. This sense of reflection amplifies the narrative power of the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170. The vehicle's presence in pop culture may grow over time, with appearances in media reinforcing its identity as one of the most extreme street-legal muscle cars of its era. That visibility shapes public memory and influences how new generations perceive the legacy of the nameplate. Even those who never drive one may recognize the model as a symbol of peak combustion engineering. From an industry standpoint, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 challenges designers and engineers to consider whether similar feats might one day be repeated under synthetic fuels or hybrid assist configurations. Although electrification dominates future planning, niche segments often persist to satisfy collectors and brand loyalists. The model becomes a marker that future specialty projects will be compared against in terms of ambition and execution. In conversations about heritage, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 anchors the narrative of a nameplate that started as a nostalgic homage and evolved into an uncompromising performance statement. Analysts tracking long-term brand influence observe how farewell editions contribute to sustained brand equity even after a platform retires. The role of such halo vehicles in influencing consumer perception of more mainstream offerings remains an important business consideration. Ultimately, the consequences of releasing this model ripple through multiple domains. It forces audiences to reconsider how performance is defined and measured in an age of rapid technological change. Whether viewed as a celebration or a swan song, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 demonstrates what can be achieved when engineering focus meets market opportunity at the threshold of transformation. This potency will inform retrospective assessments about the twilight of traditional muscle and the beginning of a new performance ethos driven by different powertrains. In the final portion of this story, the broader meaning of this edition and the lessons it leaves behind will be distilled into key takeaways, tying back to the underlying question of why it matters beyond a single production run. In closing this examination of the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170, it helps to distill the key ideas that make this model a standout chapter in the evolution of high performance. First, it represents the apex of a platform that grew from retro homage to full-fledged powerhouse, proving that a long-running nameplate can evolve into something far bolder than its origins suggested. Second, it demonstrates how engineering teams can push mechanical limits responsibly through advanced technologies, targeted reinforcements, and careful calibration without crossing regulatory lines. Third, it serves as a cultural marker, reflecting the intersection of nostalgia, performance aspiration, and shifting industry realities. By placing over 1,000 horsepower in the hands of customers who value both spectacle and street legality, it created a moment in automotive history that will influence how enthusiasts and manufacturers interpret the boundaries of possibility. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 also generated broader reflections on the future of performance. It made clear that while electrification will reshape the landscape, the appeal of combustion-driven power remains potent in certain circles. Enthusiasts see the model as a benchmark that future vehicles must match or exceed in their own way, regardless of power source. At the same time, it underscored that the opportunity for further escalation in traditional formats is closing due to emissions demands and consumer shifts. This understanding helps explain why the model commands attention even among those embracing newer technologies. Collectors, historians, and casual fans alike will look back on the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 as a singular highlight. Its rarity, engineering focus, and symbolic timing give it long-term resonance. Whether preserved in collections, showcased at enthusiast events, or occasionally driven on public roads, it offers a tangible link to a performance philosophy rooted in torque, displacement, and mechanical simplicity enhanced by modern management systems. As media and culture reflect on the model, its legacy will likely grow through stories shared by owners, appearances in entertainment, and comparisons made in reviews of future performance cars. Looking ahead, the main takeaway revolves around appreciation and perspective. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 closes a chapter defined by continuous power gains and a willingness to test the bounds of what street legality allows. It will guide discussions as the industry transitions to different propulsion methods, providing a reference point for what ultimate combustion achievement looked like at its peak. That perspective helps contextualize the next wave of innovations, whether they come through batteries, synthetic fuels, or hybrid systems. Above all, this model invites reflection on the meaning of performance in a changing world. It shows that even as technology and regulation evolve, passion for engineering excellence and memorable driving experiences continues. As the final roars of combustion fade into the background of electrification, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170 remains a testament to what was possible when ambition met opportunity one last time. For enthusiasts who witnessed this culmination, the memory of its arrival and impact will endure long after production ends, shaping how future stories about high performance are told and understood. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like and subscribe and let us know which model you want covered next.